and Councilmember Jack Walsh. And of course, our regular staff, wonderful staff. Thank you for being here. All right, so first item is public comments.
We have two public comments. They were sent to the council this morning. One is regarding solid waste, and another one was regarding safety for small businesses. And those can be found within the public comment records.
Okay, we don't have to read those comments here, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so, great, thank you. Okay, moving on to committee business. The first item is item A, approval of summary minutes for September 27, 2022.
I move adoption.
Do we have a
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to item B, 2023 Highlight College Small Business Development Center, SBDC Interagency Agreement. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Tran, members of the committee and council. I'm here tonight as the Economic Development Director for the city. So this is an agreement that we have with the Small Business Development Center at Highline College. It's been a good partnership that we've had for many years. And this is merely a renewal of the funding for that partnership for the next year in the amount of $24,000. And in the memo, it describes some of the things that they provide. One-on-one business advising services, research as part of the Small Business Administration funding delivered through the SBDC, training and education for businesses seeking that, providing international trade and export assistance, the participation in the city-sponsored foreign consulate event, work with other Highline College trade programs, and provide information to Federal Way businesses during the Do Business in Federal Way, or businesses on the Doing Business in Federal Way program provided by SBDC and the city. So this is a good partnership that we have with Highline, and the mayor recommends that we continue that agreement for the next year.
Thank you, Brian. Committee members, do you have any questions for Brian?
I just have one question. It's a very small amount of money. In the future, would we get more services if it was funded with more for our small businesses and people in Federal Way?
That is, that's something that we could look into. In the past, we have, the amount has fluctuated. We looked into what those were since 2006. They started at 17,500 for a couple of years. And then it went up to 22.5, and then it went down to 20, and now we're back up to 24. So the amount has fluctuated for the exact reasons. I don't have an answer at this meeting, but I could certainly get that. And if the committee felt that it needed to do more after that information, we could certainly take up that discussion. But I can get you the additional information.
Okay,
later.
thank you.
If Councilmember Walsh.
Yeah, I believe that is because I'm fairly familiar with SBDC, and I believe that's because they base it on the previous year's service that they provided. So they will provide service to any, that they're not putting a cap on the number of businesses in Federal Way that they will serve. If there's a business in Federal Way that would like their assistance, they'll do it. So there's not a cap on it.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Can you tell us what the foreign consulate event in spring of 2023 is? And if council can be a part of that or not?
I imagine council could be a part of that. The exact details of the event, I'll have to follow up and get those to you, which I can do.
I imagine you won't be planning it, though.
No, the Highline does help with that, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I see no further questions. May I have motion, please?
I move that we move the agreement as recommended to the consent agenda.
The proposed employee retention incentive payment processing plan to the November 1, 2022 consent agenda.
No, I think we one step
Thank you,
ahead here. Let
I
go,
second that.
let go back to the 2023 Highlight College Small Business Development. Council
Yeah.
Member Dovey, can you please?
Yes, I move the agreement with Highline College for the 23 calendar year be approved and sent to the consent agenda.
Did I skip?
Do I have a motion?
Oh, second.
Okay, second, sorry. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Sorry, I skipped that.
That's okay,
You
you're
did
just ahead of us few hours, right?
Yeah, you're the next one, Erica.
Okay, so that matter passed 3-0 for the record. We are now moving on to item C, Employee Retention Incentive Payment Processing Plan.
Hi, good
Vanessa?
evening, Chair, council members. So the policy question before you tonight is, should the council authorize this proposed incentive payment processing plan for the ARPA-funded retention incentives? As we near the end of 2022 and look towards how we're going to implement and process the retention incentives, some questions came forward about the council's intent with regard to eligibility and proration specifically for part-time employees, and whether or not we would be prorating the additional $500 per year for employees with greater than 5 years of service. And so what we've brought forward for your consideration for the consent agenda is a relatively straightforward and simple payment processing plan that will essentially detail the eligibility requirements. That would be all employees being classified as regular employees, so the retention incentive would not be paid to temporary staff. That would include any long-term limited-term employees who are eligible to receive benefits. I would specify that employees must remain employed on December 31st of the incentive year to receive the incentive payment. And then it also specifies that employees out on protected leave for paid family medical leave or for family medical leave, that's protected leave status, would remain eligible as if they were employed for that month's incentive, as well as any employees who were on leave pending an investigation, which these are scenarios which we have with employees in the last year who it felt punitive to do otherwise. The proration of the incentive for part-time employees was not addressed in the original option. I think the intent was there, but it wasn't specifically in the option that council selected and adopted. And so we're seeking clarification that regular part-time employees would be eligible to receive a pro rata share of the $5,000 bonus. So for instance, if an employee works half-time, their bonus for the year would be half of the incentive for a full-time employee at $2,500. So I've detailed some other examples in the plan for your consideration and would ask if you have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have-
I do have a question, if I could, Chairman.
go ahead.
Vanessa, could you explain, part-time to me means somebody that comes and goes and maybe for 90 days but you're talking about part-time, somebody that's not, that maybe job sharing or somebody that's really full-time but only working less hours. Is that what you refer to by part-time?
Correct. When we say regular status, we have regular status full-time employees and we have regular status part-time employees. So an
Okay.
employee's budgeted regular position with the city might only be half-time or 0.8, FTE. They may work a reduced schedule than 40 hours a week. And I believe we currently have 7 or 8 regular part-time employees that this would apply to.
Okay, so just so my follow-up question is, so if we hired somebody in the summer to work in parks for 90 days, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about our valued employees that, for whatever reason, work 75% of the time because that's what their job is.
Correct. The seasonal
Okay.
employment you're talking to are not eligible for the incentive payment. Those are what we consider seasonal and/or temporary.
Thank you for clearing that up for me.
Councilmember Norton?
Did I have my hand up?
Yes.
Oh, oops, sorry.
Oh, okay. Deputy Mayor?
I think, excuse me, thank you. So I thought when we passed this that the employee would be paid the bonus during the month of December. Is there a reason that it's after December?
If Steve wants to chime in, I believe payroll had always intended this to be paid.
For payroll processing and for eligibility, we need to confirm that they actually were on the,
Yeah.
that they've submitted a timesheet through the end of December.
And, I mean, typically, the time period through December 31st is always paid on January 5th. So our January 5th paycheck will always be representative of the last pay period of 2022 or of December. So I think that's consistent with how we've processed payroll for the year.
Okay. And secondly, can you tell me how many employees we have that will qualify for this?
I can't off the top of my head. I would say all of our regular employees would be probably some prorated portion, 370 would be my guess. That's not exact, but all regular status employees would be eligible to receive a portion.
Okay.
And I didn't cost it because the budget's already there and approved. It's just the details that we're looking to line out.
And the total FTEs for the entire city in next year's budget was 397, but that includes everything, including temporary. So I think 370 is a really good estimate.
Correct.
And the 370 includes the part-time and the full-time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So for clarity, we are authorizing the incentive payment for this year, 2022, and then 2023. So they will receive twice, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions. May I have a motion, please?
I move to forward the proposed employee retention incentive payment processing plan to the November 1, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are moving on to item D, Town Square Park and Staircase Electrical. Autumn, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Coach Mark, committee members. Thank you for having me this evening. I am here to discuss Town Square Park and Staircase Electrical. In an effort to further enhance the mayor's vision and beautification of the downtown area and create community pride and joy during the holiday season, staff is seeking approval for additional electrical outlets for lights and snowflake decor on the light poles within Town Square Park and the staircase. Staff solicited bids in August of this year and is bringing forth the following policy question. Should the City Council approve the proposed agreement with King Salo Electric for the Town Square Park and Staircase Electrical? And I'm happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Thank you. Committee members have any questions?
Can you tell everyone the cost?
The cost is going to be $30,211.44. I do apologize, there was a typo on my staff memo. So the total cost is within the contract.
So this is within in the park and on the staircase?
Correct.
So, can I ask a question? Sorry, Susan, did I interrupt?
I just have one more question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
The lights on the staircase, are they capable of changing color?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
so my question is, we make it so that we have these lights. Will we ever have to do this again next year? Or this a one-time and then it's ready for the next 20 years until they don't have electricity or something?
It's one time. We will have to hang the lights every year, but we won't have to install electrical again.
But we're okay, so it's one time. Okay.
Yeah, the snowflakes will go up each season and then come down at the end of the season, similar to our tree in Town Square Park.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Adam. I'm just wondering if you could correct the amount in the memo before it goes to the full agenda.
Yes, I can.
Because it's, yeah, thank you.
So the correct amount is?
$30,211.44. And that is the amount written within the contract that is part of this packet.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands. Can I have? a
Erica, do
motion?
you want to make the motion?
Sure, Jack, thanks. I move to forward the proposed agreement to the November 1, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I will second that.
Hang on a second. Deputy Mayor has a question. Go ahead.
So how will these not be vandalized?
They are about 15 feet up. They're high up
Okay.
on the light pole.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
All right. No.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Autumn,
you.
thank you. Okay, at this point, we are moving on to item E, purchase of police vehicle laptops. Thomas?
All right, good evening, Chair Tran and committee and council members, Deputy Mayor. Before you tonight is the purchase of 13 GTAC laptops for the police. It's in the total amount of $61,846.47. Purchased from Bright Systems. These are kind of part of our typical replacement reserves. We have a 5-year life cycle on our police laptops, and inside of a police car that is a pretty hard life. So it is important to kind of keep these things refreshed as on a regular routine as we possibly can. These are going to be purchased off of a contract. In the staff memo, there is a little bit of an error correction that I need to make. It says that it's part of the state of Washington WISC-NASPO contract when it's actually the NCPA, National. It's a different contract that we're approved for. These were budgeted as part of the 2022 approved budget. And another thing that is important to note is that the amount that we have for 13 laptops budgeted was $55,000 in 2022. Unfortunately, there has been significant increases to the tune of about $323 a piece since we ordered the additional ones for the 28 cars back in January. So it brings the total cost up to $61,846.47. And then we'll be putting in, as part of the budget adjustment for the end, the $6,800, specifically $6,846.47 additional that we'll need. We'll be funding that from equipment reserves. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Do we have any question for Thomas? Seeing none.
I move that we authorize the purchase of 13 GTAC laptops for $61,417 and put it on the consent agenda.
We can't hear you, Councilmember Norton. I think you muted.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're moving on to item F, AP voucher, September 16, 2022 through October 15, 2022, and payroll voucher from September 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2022. Jace, welcome.
Good evening, Council Chair Tran, Deputy Mayor Honda, Council President Kochmar, and Council Committee members. Before you are the AP vouchers from 9/16 through 10/15/2022 in the amount of $4,125,511.16, and payroll vouchers from 9/1 to 9/30/2022 in the amount of $4,265,703.94. This is pretty consistent with prior months. August vouchers for accounts payable were $4.3 million. Payroll vouchers were $4.2 in August. So very consistent with prior months. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I know that we sent an email back on questions for AP vouchers, and we'd be happy to clarify or follow back up if we need to.
I do have one question on that.
Okay.
Is it?
Go ahead.
On the Eyes for Federal Way, the $46,964.68, is that paid once a year, or is that, how long is that term for?
My
Does that cover?
I think it's the annual. I don't know if we have Thomas still on the line,
Okay.
but we can follow back up on that, just
Okay.
to double check.
Thank you.
I am back on the line. What was the question again, Deputy Mayor?
So in the vouchers, the amount in the vouchers, is that just for this year, or is that, is that the annual amount?
The C-Click fix for Eyes on Federal Way.
$46,964.68?
That's annually.
So,
So that's what we pay annually for it, yep.
okay.
That's
So
part of the contract.
it doesn't matter how many times someone reports something, or,
No, it's actually specifically, the way that we buy it is based on modules or features that we request, as well as the amount of users that we have in the system, is how it's paid for, not by the amount of requests.
okay.
So we could have a million requests and we'd still pay the same.
Oh, good, okay, thank you. I mean, I don't know that we want 1 million requests, but
You probably
any
don't.
questions, we're happy to answer.
Thanks.
All right. I don't see any other hands or questions. May I have a motion, please?
I move to forward the vouchers to the November 1, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to the last item on the agenda, item G, monthly financial report for September 2022. Mr. Groom.
Thank you very much. The last item on the agenda is our monthly financial report. We are 9 months through the year. We've closed the month of September. And if this is good, so if you're waiting for the highlight of the meeting, I'm afraid this probably isn't going to be it, because you know, if finance is in the news, that's generally not a good thing. But we do have a responsibility every month to bring you the accountability on how we are tracking month by month by month on the budget that we approved last time. So what we have in your packet, and we have got citizens that read this. I'm thankful that we have some engaged citizens that call and clarify if we've written a variance explanation that doesn't make sense, so that we can improve on it. But this month, the year-to-date, the 9 months through September, our revenues are favorable, almost 7%, and our expenditures are just right even with budget. That includes some rather large expenditures that we pay at the beginning of the year, such as our insurance premiums. But this is indicative of every department, every manager, you know, managing their program to budget, and we track with them. We make sure that we've got everything coded correctly, and this is where we're at. So the significance of the fact that revenue is coming in favorable to budget means that we don't have to then turn around and look at cost cutting or delaying anything. Everybody who's managing their budget can go ahead and proceed according to budget. We've had a very favorable year in several revenue categories. This slide shows a table of how each of the most material revenues are coming in compared to budget. And I would shade them yellow or red if they were of concern. A couple of these are double or triple, 50% and 100% greater than what we budgeted. So this shows how we're coming in versus budget, line by line. And then if we look at compared to prior year, sales tax, the reason we want to look at sales tax prior years, because this is our single biggest economic indicator, and it's coming in 7.5% over prior year. And given the economic conditions we've all been talking about as we went through budget, where it makes sense to look at this every single month. Utility tax, this is a combination, a consolidation, if you will, of several of our utility taxes as a group. This is also coming in just a touch over prior year. That is both volume and rate, but this is a very, positive indicator. Property tax, this one is generally always comes in at the end of the year just pretty much as we levied it. The timing during the year may vary, but this one is the most consistent, but it's also very material. It's a $11 million budget, so we want to make sure that we're looking at that. Real estate excise tax. This is not as material. The scale on the left here only goes up to 5 million or 6 million. But this is an indicator of the strength of our valuations and also the pace of the transactions that we're seeing in the residential and commercial real estate market. And as you can see, we budgeted fairly cautiously, conservatively compared to the actuals we were seeing last year. We still toned it back, but it's been coming in very strongly, and it continues to do though. And we will just keep watching it every month.
Hey, Steve, can I ask a question on that, if you go back?
Yes, happy to.
Now that, real estate interest rates have gone up, things have changed, when would you see a dip in that if housing sales are changed in a federal way? When would it show up? Is it going to show up in November, or we see the statistics in December? I gotta believe they've slowed down.
Sure, I agree, because mortgage rates undoubtedly slow down the pace of the sales. We get this on a 1 month. We get this on a 1 month lag. So September we get August, and in October we'll get September's. So it's not like sales tax that we get on a 2 month lag, but we still do get it on a 1 month lag.
So in November, we will see, because interest rates started going up, 45 days ago, so we might see a little dip from what we're seeing. I mean, you can see the graph that it's kind of dipped a little bit on the top already.
Yes, that
It looks like.
Yes, that would be reasonable to expect. And then your next question is what expenses do we budget to spend on our real estate excise tax? We only authorize spending up to our budget, so we budgeted fairly cautiously or conservatively. So the fact that it's coming in healthy this year, it gives us a little bit of hedge, a little bit of wiggle room. Next year, if it comes in under budget, what we would then have to do would be put the brakes on some of our capital spending in public works and parks. That's why we watch it every month. Excellent question. Does that answer your question?
You did, thank you.
Yes, sir. Lodging tax, this is an even smaller scale. We budgeted $150,000, but this is a real success story for the hotel sector, the tourism. It has taken 23, 24 months to recover. We are still only at 92% of the revenue at the rate we were getting in 2019, pre-COVID. So this is a breathe a sigh of relief, celebrate it, but this is also the suffering that we know that our hotel managers and any of the related travel sector.
Steve?
Yep.
So since then, the previous years, 2 hotels have been taken off the market because King County has purchased them. So I'm wondering if this is going to be what we're going to see, if this is going to be it, because we've had 2 hotels taken off the market.
That's a really good question, and I have not done an inventory of how many rooms we have in market rate hotels. I haven't done that, and that's something that's kind of on my to-do list to do.
It would be interesting to know, and if we could prove that we've lost that income and send a bill to King County. And I'm serious about that because we count on this income, and if we can show that it has had an impact on the lodging tax revenue that we do need for programs, that maybe they could cover it.
Sure, and I show this information to our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee every time that they meet. And even this last month, they didn't meet, I still sent it out because we want to be engaged with them I'm thinking more forecasting, but you raise a good point. We, I'll take
Just an idea.
up that.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Hey, can I follow up on Susan's question? This is kind of maybe out there, but those aren't permanent lodging places at King County. Are they still classified as hotels?
I think that's going to have to be a follow-up question, and that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a
Or
good
could they
question.
be? Probably nobody's asked that question, but maybe there's a way to classify them as short-term hotels.
Well, on our remittance, I think we know the names of the hotels that are being remitted for lodging tax, and I want to get down to the number of room level, just so that we do, so that we know our own city. So I'll follow up on that.
Well,
Good point.
so I don't see how they could be classified as hotels because the county is using tax money to purchase and to run
Yeah.
they would be considered shelters.
There's still a per-day cost to every one they do, and they're not permanent. They're not apartments. They're
Yeah.
kind of weird.
Yeah, I would guess that those are now outside of lodging tax. I'll follow up and confirm that for you.
So the days in, is it the days in downtown? That would be considered permanent supportive housing, so I believe that would be considered apartments. But it's a good point to see how they are considered.
Yeah. Oh, well, nobody's ever asked. That was a good question, Susan.
Oh, sure, you're not standing at the podium being stumped. But, the collective brain trust, we're harder on ourselves. We'll get better knowing this stuff. I finally put together this graph. This graph was a little bit tougher because all of the other graphs that I've shown you, we show you the cash that has come in. It's in the bank. When it's deposited, we record it as revenue. This one, we only get on our investments, we only get coupon payments once every 6 months. So we had to break it down month by month so that we could accrue, because when we're holding bonds, we know that we've earned the interest. And so we're able to actually show how much we received last year, how much we budgeted. It looks like we budgeted a little optimistically last year. The little thin blue line is what we actually got, and the gray shaded triangle, that's what we budgeted. But as you can see, and we all know, this isn't news. This just shows graphically what we're doing. And I just want to show that we still have got a cash balance citywide over 110,000, but about 25 of that is going to go away as we spend down ARPA and as we pay down the key bank debt on the target property. But as of now, that's the level of our total cash. The investments, those blue bars, that's going to level off. We've gotten to 48. We just did 2 more in the month of October, and we are going to leave it at that level for some time as we, we'll get with Parks and Public Works and really take a hard look at the pace of the spending on our capital projects. But what that means is we still have over half of our total cash at the moment through September in the state pool, and then we know that a portion of it is going to be spent down over several months in ARPA. In November, we're going to spend down the debt pay down, and that leaves the rest for us to scratch our heads and decide how much we need for liquidity and how much we're going to invest. But for the time being, for the next few months, I think we're just going to level out. We're quite pleased with the interest that we've been able to do. It more than exceeds what we need for next year's budget, and so we're going to err on the side of caution. So my last slide is just as we finish the year to get through 2022, all of our departments are managing the budget. We continue to report here monthly. We do have a quarterly budget amendment we will be bringing. All of the any grants that have been approved in the last couple of months, while we want to make sure that we get them into the 2022 budget along with the expenses. And then after we close the year, we will calculate, look at any open POs and obligations that need to be carried forward into 2023. And then the first quarter, we'll bring that carry forward, and then we'll be watching for new grants next year. And then, of course, next year, we manage the budget. And that is as exciting and interesting and entertaining as I can make managing this city. We're staying out of the newspaper. I want you to be feeling briefed and that you've got your thumb on the pulse of what's going on with the finances of the city. And if you have any questions, I'm open.
Thank you, Steve.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead, please.
On the business licenses, in 2021, January was the busiest month, which I believe that might have been the first or second time that the state did the business licenses. So do we expect the same kind of trend going forward? We had a much lower amount in January of 2022 for business licenses.
You know, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think what we were thinking when we forecasted the budget. I think we tried to take out spikes and anomalies, I think, so that that would give us an achievable budget, if I recall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Steve? If no, may I have the motion, please?
I move to forward the September 2022 monthly financial report to the November 1, 2022 consent agenda for approval.
I do have one
Second.
question.
Hang on a second. Deputy Mayor has a
I'm
follow-up
sorry to
question.
do this to you guys again.
Go ahead.
No, you're not.
I just want to keep you up there, Erica. The utility tax rebate program, at the conclusion of the program last spring, in talking with some staff members, we decided that we would change the program a little bit going forward. Do you know where the process is in that? That perhaps it would leave the finance department and go to community development department?
We were just putting that on our calendar to talk about internally in finance. Can I get
Okay.
back to you on that? Because we're thinking ahead. Yep, actually,
Okay.
Sherry was being
Okay.
so bold as to remind me, which I appreciate.
Okay, because we need to really
Mm-hmm.
step it up this next year and make sure we meet as many people's needs as possible in the city.
It's a good program and making
Okay.
it available to as many people as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Now, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. And that's the end of the agenda. Our next meeting is going to be on November 22nd, 2022 at 5 p.m. in this room and also via Zoom.
Chair, before you.
Yes,
I have a
please, go ahead.
question. Go ahead and finish and I'll ask
No,
a question.
I'll close up. Go ahead.
Thank you. So maybe Deputy Mayor Honda can jump in if she wants. We're getting close to adopting the budget. But before we adopt the budget, I think there is some interest on the council pulling the Steel Lake Annex out of the budget and having a further discussion on it. Because I think that there were some members of our council who had questions about how we were moving forward on the Steel Lake Annex, because I think they thought it was going to be a study. But there are others of us that have questions about the project as a whole. So rather than having it within the budget and adopted, I would like to ask that it be pulled from the budget for a separate discussion, perhaps at our next council meeting.
In order to do that, do we need to do agenda setting and put?
Well,
we
it's
have
on,
a hear-
it's on the agenda, it's in the budget, so if you want to address that, you would need to do that.
I
in-
can bring it up
In
at
an
the
open session at a
council
regular meeting,
Add
before
it
you
to the
vote on
agenda.
I think it's on for first reading at the next,
Second reading on November 1st, and then we bring the ordinances.
it's on for first reading of the ordinance, I believe.
Okay, is that one?
Yeah, I can pull up the agenda, but anyway, either way, you need to address that with the full body at the regular meeting.
So we could just, at the next council meeting, pull that and then ask that that be withdrawn from the budget as a whole for a separate discussion.
But wouldn't we have to vote on it there at the meeting?
Yes.
Well, it all depends
you-
on what the discussion is.
Yeah, I think you'd have to have a discussion and then make a motion if you want to do that.
So do we, but it's part of the budget discussion, we wouldn't have to have a separate motion to discuss it?
Correct, it's in the budget.
Okay.
It's on that topic.
It's in the mayor's budget, it's in the adjusted budget that we've incorporated the council's proposals, and at the moment of adoption, is that the motion where you approve it with that one change?
So I get, you know, I'm not going to ask this question, I'll ask it either later or at the meeting. But I'm just following the way we did the PAC and how we voted on the PAC and how we voted for to finance the PAC and actually move forward with the PAC. So I don't believe we did it this way. I believe it was separate.
Well, it was in a budget, so it eventually, either if it's in this budget or if we amend a budget later, it has to end up in a budget.
Right.
If council's not comfortable with the current proposal and doesn't want it in the budget, then that's something you can discuss during this budget cycle. But regardless of where it gets built or
Right.
the timing, it will end up in a budget at some point. So I think this is the same process, it's just, I think the decision-making point might be different. Like, if you guys are wanting to change the decision of council to put it at the Steel Lake Annex, and you don't want it in the budget till that issue is resolved, then you need to do that before you pass the budget.
So once something is passed in the 23-24 budget, it's done, it's passed, it's approved, and it's ready to go.
It's appropriated,
It's
and then we have to
appropriate.
come back to council on each spending.
Approval for the, I would still like to have the discussion prior
Correct.
to the budget adoption.
Right.
And then, so that it's clear for everybody.
Right.
So that if we do adopt the budget, that it's not a set in stone, correct?
The money is one thing, coming back for the
So-
planning and.
For approval is
It is,
another.
it actually is kind of set in stone. So once council has, it's not set in stone in that it's, you can never take it back, but the farther along into the construction process we
Right.
get, the more sunk costs we have. So at this point, we have, I believe, something around $250,000 to $500,000 in sunk costs. And we spent that money, so we can't get that back. But the farther along we get in the
Right.
process, the harder it is to take it back.
Right.
So with the Performing Arts Center, and I've gone back and I've watched the meetings, so I know how this went. We passed small amounts of money every now and then to progress the PAC. And then there was one meeting that the whole 32,000 or whatever it was came before us. And if that passed, then the PAC was going to be built.
Right.
So this is not doing it the same way as the PAC.
No, this is just the budgeting part of that question. So what you're thinking about is the actual authority to go forward on construction. So right now, all council has authorized is they've made a selection of the preferred site, and we've authorized an architect to study the site and design the project. And then later on, we'll come back to, usually there's certain benchmarks, there's 20%, 80% design build or progress in the project. And each of those milestones, we come back to council for further authorization to proceed. So, but those are the spending part of that, of the equation. This is the budgeting part.
So, yeah, so I still don't think that PAC was done like this.
And we've also budgeted bond proceeds and debt service, however, we would be bringing that separately to be able to issue debt. We would have to bring that to council, and it would come through FedRec.
And that's a good point. That might be what the whole amount that we ended up bonding in we kept calling it the capital stack for the PAC. That is the funding mechanism, and that will be presented all at once. And that's to authorize us to borrow money to spend. And we haven't got to that point in this project yet.
I remember the meeting quite clearly, because I was the only one who voted against
Right.
it. And
And-
so I remember how the meeting went and
Yeah.
how things
I think
were.
what I'm saying is it's consistent with what we did with the PAC. We haven't actually got to that meeting yet in this
Okay.
process.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask a question? I think, Linda, aren't you really asking that you want to, you want to rechange the vote that was 4-3 to do it? And that's what you're asking, not the money issue?
Councilmember Dovey, when we discussed this at the last meeting where this topic came up, there were council members who said that they believed we were only going forward with a study, not with some council members, not with going forward with the project as a whole at the Steel Lake Annex. So I guess the question would be for staff to make that's why I'm bringing it up now, so staff can be prepared if the question comes up, because I would like to have a clear idea of where we're going with this and whether or not we can still change this to a different site if there is interest on the council. And so it is in the budget, and once it's in the budget, we're moving forward. So I just would like a further discussion on this.
We'll pass that on to the mayor, make sure that staff's ready.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Councilmember Dovey, the answer is whatever consensus of the council is, that's the way we move forward. But I know that,
I just thought we had a consensus, we had a vote, and it's on to the next thing. But if we're going to try to change the vote, then that's another discussion. It's not a budget discussion, it's a vote discussion on, are we doing it?
I appreciate that. And I heard people on the council saying that they were confused on what the vote really was. So I think that we need a further discussion on it.
No, I thought it was pretty clear. It was pretty controversial voting. It wasn't unanimous, so, okay.
So,
One more thing,
go ahead.
even tonight, when Thomas brought up the laptops for the police vehicles, he said, this is in the approved budget for 2022. So I think we just need to really make sure what it is that we know what we're doing. Thank you.
So will either council president or deputy mayor will bring that up at the next meeting then? Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just saying to remind the public that we are going to have the FedEx meeting in November 22nd at 5 p.m. in this room, and also available via Zoom. And I also want to take that opportunity to thank all the council members for attending this meeting, either in person or via Zoom. Really appreciate it. And thank you, staff, for your support, and thank you, the public, for your watching and your interest in with this committee. So with that, this meeting now concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you.
You too.
night.
Have fun. Bye.
Recording stopped.